Hi everybody and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Alicia. If you're not, welcome back. Today we're doing another dedicated book review, even though I haven't posted my October TBR. Oops. So today we'll be talking about Mexican Gothic by Silvia Moreno Garcia. So if you're ready, grab some tea, grab some coffee, grab some popcorn, and let's get right into it. So, Mexican Gothic is a reimagining of a classic Gothic horror novel. It takes place in 1950s Mexico, and we have our main character whose name is Noemi. She's sort of a feminist and she loves grandness. She's very particular about a lot of things and she loves dressing up and going to parties, but she also loves studying anthropology and she wants to continue with her education, but in 1950s Mexico, her family really just wants her to settle down and get married. So, Noemi receives quite a peculiar letter from her cousin Catalina, who was recently married to a man they briefly met that they knew very little about. In her letter, Catalina mentions that her husband's family is trying to poison her and that there's weird stuff going on in the house. Although Noemi doesn't jump at the chance to go save her cousin, she does make a deal with her dad that if she rescues Catalina, she can go ahead and go to grad school. So at this chance, Noemi takes a trip to the countryside to visit High Place, which is the name of the house that her cousin resides in, and this is where the novel really takes off. This is definitely a book where the less you know, the better. I ended up loving it. I gave it a 4.5 out of 5 stars, and even then I'm not sure what's causing me not to give it a 5. It's more of a feeling so far. Initially I did have a little bit of trouble getting into it because I feel like Silvia Moreno Garcia's writing style changed. So I read Gods of Jade and Shadow earlier this year and I was expecting that same writing style, but going into Mexican Gothic, it did vary slightly. It did feel Gothic in a way, and it took me about 2 to 3 chapters to get into, but once I did, it was fantastic. And I actually really appreciated that Silvia went ahead and modified her writing style, if she did, to resemble a 1950s Gothic type of narrative, which helped me just immerse myself even more in the story. Mexican Gothic is truly a reimagining of a Gothic horror novel. It does have those elements that classic horror novels do. Don't go into this expecting jump scares. I have seen some reviews where people were disappointed because it wasn't thrillery enough, but this isn't a thriller. It's a Gothic horror novel. And it definitely stays true to that with the slow building of tension, the creepy haunted house, the overall discussions around human morality, philosophy, and religion, as well as having evil characters that are metaphors for something larger scale that is plaguing society. Within this novel, you do have commentary on colonialism, colorism, misogyny, to name a few, and eugenics plays a really, really big aspect in this novel as a whole. I've also heard people out there criticize it for its lack of horror or not horror enough. There's definitely a lot of body horror in this, so that if that's something that doesn't appeal to you, I wouldn't recommend picking it up. For people that do read books that have a lot of body horror, this will have those elements, but it's not entirely focused on that. There is a reason for the body horror to exist in this novel, and it's very intentional. Overall, I thought this book was beautifully crafted. It does a great job of touching on all these themes and bringing them together in a very cohesive way. Another thing that I do want to point out is the pacing is a little weird. The first 2/3 of the novel are very slow. It's a very slow burn, and she's definitely someone that likes to describe her setting and surround you in everything. So it's very atmospheric, and it does pick up at the last third of the book. It goes from like this coasting and like building of tension and atmosphere to like bam, takes off. So if you're someone who doesn't mind slight changes in pace, this shouldn't really bother you. Again, the beginning of the book is very slow, but it's purposefully slow. It's meant to really capture the reader and to truly submerge you into this reading experience, to then just take you on a roller coaster ride at the end of the book. And I thought that was also beautifully done. In terms of the length of the book, it's a pretty thin book. I believe it's under 300 pages. And yeah, it's actually, it's 301 pages. And to be honest, I thought this was the perfect length for this book. Earlier when I read Gods of Jade and Shadow, I wish it would have been a little bit longer, but this one I think it's perfectly length, not too little, not too much. And even though I did describe her writing style as being very descriptive, it's not overly verbose. It's not going to be like Stephen King or like, who else? John Steinbeck, for example. Final thoughts on this book. If you're someone who enjoys horror for the feeling and the atmosphere, but also for metaphors of something larger going on in our society that are really well done and articulated, I think you'll really enjoy this book. Again, it's not a thriller, so if you're expecting to go into a really fast-paced book that is going to, I don't know, are there jump scares in books? I'm really not sure. It's not going to be the kind of book that is scary in the sense of I'm home alone at night and I'm afraid that someone's going to break into my house and kill me. It's not that kind of scary. It's the kind of generational trauma type of scary, the one that is deep-seated in your bones, the one that you don't notice but you have a visceral reaction to, like the objectification and fetishization, am I saying that right, of women of color and the gaslighting of people of color. So it's that kind of horror and that kind of slow build, deep-seated uneasiness that it really causes. And to be frank, some people might not understand that if you're white and you've never really experienced gaslighting. It's something that you won't really, unfortunately, understand. But that doesn't mean that it's not horror, and it doesn't mean that it's not someone else's reality. So if you're a white person, I just recommend going into this and really trying to submerge yourself in the atmosphere and take it for what it is. Yeah, so that was my review of Mexican Gothic. Hopefully it's something that you might want to pick up. I thought it was fantastic. It's truly a work of art and I loved every second of it. Let me know down below if you've read it and if you loved it. And I'll see you on the next one. Bye!